Oh, no, no, it's okay. I wanted to ask you that the other day, but everybody's busy. That's okay. But anyway, Marilyn, yeah, it's good to be. It's good to have you back in Singapore.
Thank you. It's
You,
really good to be here.
yeah. Are you ready? Are you all set?
I think I am, but
Don't worry.
if there's anything that you'd like to just say to me about preparation or
Well, I'm going to talk about your book and your green initiative, and then what inspired you, and of course, and your advice on go green, and how one should go green, and when you can get more material on go green, and how to overcome red life in your lives, and you know this sort of thing. And yeah, and we just say you can elaborate as much as you want on your momentum, and and uh, and tell them where they can find you on your Facebook or sorts. If you want to, okay?
I do. I'm just,
Take your time.
what is it? But if you would just say what my website is or ask me, it's gogreenlightway.com.
Okay. I will ask you in the week. Listen. Oh, let me have that so I can read it from there. Is that okay?
Sure.
Okay. You're ready? If you're ready, I'm
And
ready.
I'm Marilyn Schoeman,
Yes, Marilyn Schoeman. Yes.
just like the shoe.
Okay. Marilyn Schoeman. Okay. That's what it's gonna be. Wow.
Oh, wait one more second. May I have your hands?
What?
Robin,
Mhm.
you and I, in this situation, are going to be offering a message of hope and inspiration and guidance for people.
Mhm.
And so just imagine that we have a green light shining down from the Lord
Okay.
to do good work here.
Okay. Well, I'll believe that.
So,
Good.
woohoo, thank you.
Yeah. Hi, I'm Robin Stienberg. Welcome to the National Tourist Twice online news. Say hi for the high hotels around the world and fans who are traveling and staying at the high hotels. But if you're not, don't worry. There's always a chance for you to do so. Today we have a great guest right beside me, and there's none other than Marilyn Schoeman. She's a speaker and author of some of the great books and program called Go Green right here. And it's all about how to think, speak, and act to make good things happen and discover the green light, unleash the power of this new universal language of possibility. And it also has tools right behind this book that would enlighten you, which Marilyn will be talking about. And Marilyn, thank you for joining us here, at the National Tourist Choice Hyatt, and I hope you enjoy your stay in Singapore, as well as the Hyatt. How do you find the Hyatt so far?
It's gorgeous, it's
Oh.
elegant. I'm enjoying the aromas that are coming from the kitchen as well.
Oh wow! Folks, if you're wondering where we are now at the mezzanine, so don't miss the mezzanine if you are in Singapore. It's one of the best kitchens around, and Marilyn is now going green for it. And Marilyn, everybody wants to know what is Go Green all about. What is the philosophy, of Go Green? I mean, it's an amazing concept, which I wish I could have done it. And I'm naive. Tell us more about it.
Well, first of all, the title is Go, and that alone is a very important aspect of green light. And I've been working on this for a long, long time, and I find that when we think about what is it that will be increasing the odds that I will get a green light, that's what I want to do. And what will increase the odds that I will not get a red light? And that's also what I want to be paying attention to. And what I have learned as I've been working on this for a long, long time is that green light is a language, it's a way of thinking, it's a way of speaking, it's a way of taking action. And I also would just say, as a simple definition, green light is all the good stuff, red light is all the other stuff. And green light is focusing on the objective, and red light is focusing on the obstacles. Green light is really about being the way we want to be, but we haven't necessarily known how. And we also have had it not so prevalent around us. We've had a lot of red light stuff around us. We get lots of news in our media about disasters, and we get it over and over and over, and it gets sensationalized as well. And we keep watching, we keep reading, and it's red, 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 and we need to be looking at how do we green ourselves? How do we take the actions and make the choices that bring us more of what makes us feel good, what energizes us, so that we can then go out and make good things happen. If we get all depressed about all these things that are happening that we don't like and we don't want to have happen, we get into a downward spiral. And green light is the opposite. It takes us in an upward spiral. Another piece of that people often don't recognize until you bring it to their awareness and they say, oh yes, of course, and that is that we are a walking biochemical factory. So when we are saying, oh, I really hate this, or this is a stupid thing, or oh my gosh, what a terrible thing happened today, when we keep focusing on that, what we're really doing is turning on the biochemicals that are stressors, the cortisol. And we can feel our body, if we're paying attention, we'll actually feel our body tensing up, contracting. And that happens in our brain too, that our brain will become more rigid, and we'll get into a fear space. And so the opposite of that is, of course, the green. So when we are thinking about, okay, what's a really good thing to have happen here, then what is it that I might do that would help make that happen? That's taking us in the direction of what energizes us, what makes us feel expansive, and simultaneously turns on the feel-good biochemicals, which are, serotonin and dopamine. And so we know that positive thinking is much more body-friendly and mind-friendly and spirit-friendly than the critical and the destructive, the angers and the frustrations and the criticisms and the put-downs and the cynicism. Those kinds of things are what diminish us. And the opposite of that are the things that enhance and enrich us. And so we can look at the things that we're not happy about, but instead of staying unhappy and frustrated or whatever, we say, okay, what am I going to do about that? And maybe one thing we're going to do is to decide not to do anything about it. We may, on the other hand, decide, in my neighborhood, in this moment, this is something I can do, or in my life, this is something I can do. But when we focus on what we can't do, we just make ourselves smaller and more unhappy, unfulfilled. But we're thinking about what drives me, what makes me passionate, what do I really care about, who do I really care about, and what might I do that would make that bigger and more intriguing or more more beneficial to more people. Those kinds of questions take us in a very different direction, and they literally energize us. So that's why actually the image is the traffic light with 3 green lights, because we want to be focused on what can bring us the best of the best. And the flip side of that actually, let me just come out of the back for a second. The flip side of that is the red. And
The red, okay.
yes, and so lots of people are hanging out in the 3 red light zone, which I call the worst case scenario. People are familiar with that term. And so then we can look at the fact that there's a whole range of things here. It's not just red and green, it's 3 reds all the way to 1 red to 1 green, up to 3 green. And so what our goal is to keep moving toward the green. And we're human beings. We're all red sometimes, we're all of us are green sometimes. And so it's really about how do we be as green as we can, as much as we can, and then feel good about it instead of saying, oh, I didn't get 100%, I'm going to be upset, I'm going to red on myself. No, it's how do I keep moving in that direction?
Wow. And speaking about moving in the right direction, how does one who wants to become creative and innovative, moving in the right direction, in the right environment, where they face maybe a very competitive environment, such as, well, let's say I'm an employee and I have my boss, how can I be green to my boss and my colleagues, to take the next step, and as well as the very long term. And the second question is that how can I be a good boss, move ahead with green along with my team? That's the whole vice versa, direction. So what are your thoughts on that?
Well, first of all, I love the question, because creativity is a lifelong passion, and the more we are using the green light style, the more creative we can be, not only in our thoughts, but in our actions. And actually, I want to make one point really clear that comes into play here, and that is that positive thinking is really helpful as a starting point, but the power of positive thinking is actually overrated.
Really?
Yes, it looks good, sounds good, feels good, but what is different because of it? And the key piece that is missing is an essential ingredient in green light, and that is the action piece. So positive thinking is a really helpful thing, and when you add the green light action step, then you've got power. But when there's no action, nothing changes. So when we are, let's just say, for example, you're come back to your question now. The first question was, how might you take the next step?
Yes.
And one very important thing I want to mention is that green light is incredibly powerful, and it must be approached in the green light style. So if I were to say to you, you have to go green, you must do this right now, you have to do this whether you want to or not, that would be very red. And so it's important to be using green styles to serve our green light goal. And so if I have a red situation, if I have let's say I have a person on my team who is very red light, they're always complaining, they criticize ideas all over the place, they get into battles with people a lot. Depending on the situation, it's probably more helpful to have a conversation with them privately and to identify what is it that is necessary. And that might be saying things like, we are working on this very important program right now, this very important project, and in order to do that, we each need to be thinking at our best level and interacting at our best level. And so it's very helpful when people are putting out ideas and offering support to each other. It hurts the process, it creates conflict with people when there's a fear of, oh, if I speak up, somebody's going to be critical of me, or somebody's going to sabotage me or something. Any of that kind of red stuff gets in the way. So what I am requesting is that when we have this next meeting, if there's something that you're really concerned about in this situation, rather than bringing it up in the group, I would appreciate having that conversation with you privately. And so also, red light information is very important. The things that aren't working, the things that are potential disasters, those are very real and they must be addressed. But we can address them in a red way or a green way. So looking at, part of green light is anticipating what's coming, and then how do I green up whatever has possibilities, and how do I minimize the red for what might be coming.
Okay.
And in terms of the boss, I'd like to just follow up on one situation that will illustrate this. I was working with a large defense company, defense manufacturer, and I was going to be doing a seminar. And before I started that, there was a person who came up to me and said, well, we've got a manager who is really difficult to deal with. He ridicules people. He is very embarrassing of people, and he does it very publicly. And so we're just so tense when we go into those meetings that we're not very productive. So I was happy to have the information ahead of time. And at the end of it, I chatted with the same person again. Well, about 3 months later, I got a call from this person. And I want to give you a side note on this so you'll know why this came about. One aspect of green light is that after people learn this, it brings a new level of accountability for red light behaviors. We've been tolerating a lot of that when we really should be saying, this is not desirable, this is not preferable, this behavior needs to not be present here. And these are the behaviors that we do want. And so, green light works best when we play it as a game. How green can I play the game of life? So if we're in a meeting and you know red light and I know green light and you know green light, and somebody slips up, a tap on the table is the signal. And so when that signal goes, it means that was red light. It doesn't say you were red light, but that was red light. And then that simultaneously is an invitation to everybody to green it up. So it's not about making somebody wrong, it's about not who's right and who's wrong, but what's green. So when we say, okay, what's green here, then it directs the conversation, it directs the energy into greening it up rather than going down into that negative spiral of red. So in the case of this manager, the call that I got 3 months later said, Marilyn, you're not going to believe this, but when Bill, that wasn't his name, but let's just say Bill was leading a meeting the other day, and he just started to go off in one of his tirades, and he stopped mid-sentence, and he tapped the table on himself, and he greened up his statement. And she said, we all almost passed out, because it was so unlike him. But what really had happened is that he had learned alternative ways to deal with what was not working. And so it's not like people are born red lighters or born green lighters necessarily, but we have people who are role models for us, and we have life experiences, and we make choices, whether we watch a lot of violent movies all the time or we watch movies that are inspiring and uplifting. So part of the power of green light is helping people become aware of what are the red light behaviors for the individual, what are the red light actions in the organization, what's the red light language that people are using, and then how do we shift that to green?
Oh.
But until people really recognize this is red, here's a green alternative,
Mm-hmm.
they can feel frustrated and be unhappy, but they don't know quite what to do about it. So the more we are consciously choosing our language, consciously noticing where am I red, where am I green, how do I go green more,
Mm-hmm.
that moves us in a really good direction.
Wow. Now, speaking of the green and red lights, now everybody's wondering what's the philosophy behind the green and the red light? What are the differences, and how can one live in green, on a daily basis? I mean, based on your book, Go by Marilyn Schoeman, really is kind of like really inspiring. Um, so, what's the philosophy? How can one live?
Well, one key aspect of the philosophy behind it is we have the power of choice. And because we have the power of choice, we do get to choose a lot of our thoughts. Maybe not all of them, but a lot of them. And we can especially be choosing the thoughts that we think over and over and over. Because the thoughts that we think a lot are the thoughts that lead our behavior in that direction.
Yes.
So if we're thinking, oh gosh, I'm gonna fail here, I'm gonna blow this interview, or I'm going to lose my job, I'm gonna lose my house. If we think that over and over, then what we're actually doing is training our brain to make those mental connections, those synapses, stronger and stronger, and that increases the odds that we will act in that way. So be conscious of what we are thinking, especially what we think frequently, over and over. And then to consciously choose, when we notice the red, to switch it to the green. Okay, if I've just said, oh gosh, I'm afraid I'm gonna lose my job today. Oh, that's a red thought. I could tap the table on myself, or I could do it in my mind. I don't have to do it out loud. What I want is to do well in my job. So I'm going to say, cancel, replace. I'm doing well in my job. And that's the statement that I'm going to be focusing on and saying more of. So one very important aspect is the particular thoughts that we choose over and over. And actually, that takes me to something that I really want to be sure that we get into, which is coming back for a second to the green light scale.
Oh, yes.
When we get on this end where there's 3 green lights,
Mm-hmm.
that would often be considered to be the best case scenario.
Mm-hmm.
But it's actually, it's more than that.
Ah.
Because if you say, here's where we are and what's our best case scenario, it's not so inspiring. We don't have new information. It doesn't really capture our imagination. You might get a 3 to 5% improvement, something like that, but it doesn't really propel you forward. So 3 green lights is the ideal scenario. And the word ideal is one of the most brain-igniting words in the English language. It's very exciting. The brain just goes, wow, I thought you'd never let me go there. It loves that word, especially because we have maybe 50 to 100,000 thoughts a day.
Mm-hmm.
And lots of those are ones we've thought over and over and over and over. That we bore our own brain with that. And so when we give our brain a question like, okay, here's where we are. What is the ideal scenario? The brain just goes, wow, look at those possibilities. And it starts to produce things for us, new ideas that had not come about and wouldn't have come about if we hadn't been asking our mind to come up with what is the ideal scenario.
Yes. Now, speaking about scenarios, I think about the women for today, and women in leadership and participating leadership, that is, what do you see moving forward? Do you think, there's there's a lot of emphasis for women to go green instead of just red, because of what's happening around the economic situation that has changed. What kind of implications would you encourage women for today?
What kind of
What kind of implications?
implications?
Yes.
Well, the really good news is, the really green news is, we have more opportunities than we've ever had before. We have more support than we've ever had before. We have more awareness of our own abilities and power to create good things for ourselves than we've had before. And so, by making the choice to speak, to think and speak and act in a green light style, in a green light manner, means that we can much more easily, much more predictably, much more regularly produce better results. And also, our body gives us feedback. If we're not, is this red or green? Well, you just feel, when I say it this way, how do I feel? When I say it this way, how do I feel? I don't want to lose my job. Well, I know how that feels. That doesn't feel good. If I say, I am succeeding at my job, that feels very different. And so we consciously choose the specific language and become aware of the patterns that we're doing.
Mm-hmm.
Very often at the end of presentations, people will come up to me and say, I didn't realize what a red lighter I was. And so becoming aware of it then allows you to choose a different approach. And what's also marvelous is the way our brain functions. Right now, we already know, we knew what green lights were before we were talking today. We knew what red lights were before we were talking today. So the brain already had a lot of information about that. And now it has a new understanding of it. And that stays there. That doesn't go away. So we get to choose whether we're going to use it or not. But now we have a new choice. We have new information to work with. And so we get to ask better questions like, well, let me just give this example. We can ask red light questions or green light questions. So let's say you have a really neat idea that you'd like to implement, whether it's in your home, whether it's on the job, whether it's something you're planning for the future. So you go to somebody with this and you say, here's my idea, can we do this? The natural, almost automatic response is going to be no. For a couple reasons. One, it's the easiest, it's the quickest response, and the other person can go right back to what they were doing. And two, that question, can we do this, practically invites, practically guarantees a no. So it's a red light question. If instead we say, okay, here's something I would like to do. How could we do this? When we ask questions like, how can we do this? That is engaging the mind. Instead of boring the mind and wanting the mind to go, forget that. So when we say, how can we do this? The brain, the other person's brain, is already beginning to work on the how. And another beauty of that is, it just skips right over that decision-making piece of, do I or don't I? My brain wants to tell you how. And also because you're coming to them with a green idea in the first place. So it's not like you're trying to make trouble and rob a bank or something. You have something green that you want to do that's going to serve people, that's going to make a better outcome, that's going to produce a happier future for somebody. So that already connects to the heart. And then when you ask to our spirit as well, when you ask, how can we do this? Oh, you've got that connection of the mind is engaged with this, and our energy goes with that, and so you start moving right down the road without having to have a great big decision about do I or don't I. Just, oh, this is appealing, let's do this.
Now, for those who have just come to understand that there is a program, Go Green, that is, Go, Marilyn Schoeman's latest new program that's been going on for a while. If I was a first timer, what would you recommend me to say or to start with? To know how could I think and say and do green? What would you recommend? Yes.
Well, it depends on a couple different situations, but the first thing that I would suggest is...
like a Monday morning. All of us hate Monday mornings,
Oh,
so the Monday,
red.
So how could we overcome our Monday blues?
By going green, okay. Thank you. And actually, that's a wonderful question you just gave me. So the first thing is, the statement is, and lots of situations we get into where people say, oh, I don't like Monday, I don't like to get up in the morning. Well, you're betting on yourself right there. So the replacement of, cancel that thought, I am enjoying Mondays. Now, you might not believe that, but it'll still feel better to say that. And the more we say that, actually the more we create that to be true. And so if you can't say, oops, can't, that's a very red word. If you choose not to say, I love Monday mornings, even to say, Monday mornings are better for me than they used to be. That's still greener than it was before. And when we, for the people who really are uncomfortable with Mondays, maybe something to do is a green light action that would be something that you do Monday morning that you really look forward to. Whether it is have a cup of coffee with a friend, whether it is call another colleague who's in green, who knows green and will support you in that, and say, okay, what's the green word for today? And you just help each other get started that way. Because what you're really doing is creating a new habit. And red light is a very strong habit for many people because we've been surrounded by lots of it. So we're now creating new habits. And it's extremely important that we are green to ourselves. We can do all kinds of very red self-talk. So it's important not to red on ourselves. When we notice that we're being self-critical, tap the table and switch the concept, switch our statement about it. But in terms of Monday morning,
how did you overcome Monday morning blues yourself?
Actually, I didn't really experience that so much.
Okay.
I had different red lights. and actually, that brings me to where green light came from in the first place. Mm-hmm. I was dealing with a lot of red lights and some major challenges, and my spirit was getting depressed, and I was having a hard time motivating myself. And so ultimately I made several choices, one of which was I left a relationship and I chose to be with people who were green.